Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Danica. I am the Grassroots Engagement Director in the Americans for Prosperity Knoxville office. I would just like to say what a fabulous looking group of freedom fighters we have in here. Thank you guys for being here. You definitely earned it. We have next to me Congressman Tim Burchett. He's out of Congressional District 2. And he's gonna chat a little bit with us this evening. Thank you again for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Danica.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, well, so I'm super excited about this topic. Let's jump right into it. Well, first of all, with the Schumer shutdown, are you enjoying your time off?
There's really no time off. I've been speaking a lot here lately. I've been in almost 50 counties now in the last year and speaking, and a lot on the big beautiful bill and other things. And I got in last night about 1:30 and went to the barn. When I come in off the road from something, I'm usually so jacked up, fired up about what's going on. I never can get to sleep, so I go out in the barn and work on skateboards. And I think I got to bed about 4 o'clock this morning, and I had to be up at 7:30 because I was at a speaking engagement in Johnson City. So,
oh my goodness! Well, we're honored that you chose to join us today. So really, with the shutdown, what's the latest on that? What can you tell us?
No, it's just Chuck Schumer's ego. It's funny, I know all the players in this thing, and I've watched this. I came to Congress with Cortez, AOC. I call her Cortez. She calls me Burchett, so, she's my friend. She's just your friendly neighborhood Marxist. I don't agree with her on a dadgum issue, but we're still friends. And she clearly will be the next senator, U.S. senator from New York, because Schumer is looking over his shoulders. He's a left-winger, but he's not a Marxist. And so what you have is New York City is moving in that direction. They'll probably elect that knucklehead. He's anti-Semitic. He is a Marxist communist. They don't even their comeback. Oh, he's a communist. Well, he's technically a Marxist. That's their comeback,
Yeah.
And so that's not Schumer's base, but it is AOC's base. And so he clearly sees that in his rearview mirror. And so he's having to shift, and that's why he's pushing. This whole thing is about illegals getting health care, and it's in the bill. It's on page 57. I'd encourage everybody to dig up Schumer's bill and read it. But it's pretty clear, and all the other nonsense that they took out, that we took out, from circumcisions in Africa to there's something in there for gay male prostitutes in Haiti for, I think, dance classes or something crazy. It's just the most absurd stuff that's in there, And so, but the left, it's just, let's print more money, and that's what they want to do, and that's their whole agenda. And Schumer sees that, and that's what that's all about. They've got that Hate America rally coming up, I believe this weekend, maybe on the 16th. And they can't shut it down after that because Mr. Soros and some of the others, we believe, have invested quite a lot of money in that. And so they have to do that to honor that commitment to the far left. So until that's over, I don't think you'll see anybody. I think eventually you'll see 4 or 5 Democrats peel off. You'll say, hey, we'll rough you up a little bit. And you'll see the people that are either not going to run again or their term is not up for 4 to 6 years. And so you just watch. That's what will happen. And I don't think Republicans are going to cave. We passed it in the House. We passed a clean CR, and the Democrats want to add about $1.5 trillion new dollars in ridiculous spending.
Man.
I'm sorry, you didn't need all that.
No, that's okay. I asked the question. I wanted an answer. That's why we got to stay vigilant. Well, can you tell us first and foremost how the working families tax cut is good for everybody in this room, everybody in Tennessee?
It's great for everybody in this room. If you're a family making $70,000, which isn't a whole heck of a lot of money now, it provides about I think around a $1,700 tax savings for you. That hit pretty hard if you did.
I don't want to pay more in taxes.
No,
Come
we
on.
don't need to pay. They're just stealing it, and so we've that ensures that, and there's a whole lot of other things that are in there from AI to. It's just a pretty well thought out bill. As you know, as I told President Trump in the White House, I said, the big beautiful bill is a little bigger and more beautiful than I really wanted vote, but actually, if you figure natural growth and the removal of all the ridiculous restraints on things like our energy production or timber and all these other things, you'll see that it frees up America, and that's our outside of our military fighting force. That's why Trump has been able to get peace and he's stopped 6 wars, I think 7 wars in 6 months, without firing a shot, because it's the economic might. He calls them and says, "Hey, I mean, everybody says, can Trump, how do you think Trump will deal with this, these dictators over here?" I said, that guy, he deals with the Teamsters in New York. I think he can handle some punk overseas. That's exactly, and he's, I've said it many times, I don't want him teaching my daughter's dadgum Sunday school class, but I love him at Pennsylvania Avenue. And I like that he's responsive to me when I have a question, and he gets the answers. If he doesn't know the answer, which is unusual, the media plays him out to be this cocky jerk, and the reality is he's pretty, he thinks things through. I've sat in that Roosevelt room with him and about 14 other folks. They were all members of the Freedom Caucus. I'm not. I was the only non-Freedom Caucus member in there, and it was really interesting, Danica, because we would ask a question, and if he didn't know, he would point behind him and say, "Answer that." He'd have this guy back there or this person over here, and there was 4 or 5, and they were the major players from Treasury, Armed Forces, just all the people, and you name the names, and they were in that room. And he would say, "What's the answer to that?" And J.D. Vance was sitting across from me on the table, and he added in quite a bit, and he's not just some figurehead, and that's pretty cool.
I like that. That shows a lot of humility in a leader. That's fantastic. So pertaining to the One Big Beautiful Bill, there was a lot of misinformation spread all over the place about it from all the outlets.
Right.
What would you say were some of the most outlandish claims made that you were able to debunk?
Folks losing their health care. They did make cuts, and the largest cuts ever, I think, in the history of Medicaid, but all it was doing is kicking off illegals and people that were fraudulently on there. I mean, dadgum, you ought to be able to work 20 hours a week, or at least look for work 20 hours. 20 hours a week, I mean, that's almost congressional numbers right there. That's overtime for Congress, but the truth is that it did the fraud. I love that. I love that more than anything. And then to hear the left and the Democrats scream and squeal that there is no fraud, and then every day there'd be a new news report. I mean, you have to the point now CNN is correcting the Democrats. Not a lot, but there's more people probably saw my colonoscopy than watched CNN today. So.
Wow. Well, you are known to be, not to change the subject, but you are known to be fiscally conservative and
Yes, ma'am.
did not actually support the first version of the bill.
That's correct.
So what changed your mind, and how did you positively impact the change on the latest passed version?
Well, actually, the president changed my mind because of the stuff in there that freed up America's workforce. I'm a big believer in capitalism, free enterprise, and if you dig in deep enough, the Chinese usually have their greedy fingers in it, and through the K Street lobbyists and frankly members of both parties. And sometimes they don't even know they're representing them. They'll have these environmental movements. Oh, you got to get out of the coal business, and it's awful. Acid rain. But the Chinese are putting on 20 new coal-fired plants every few months, and these are not like American coal-fired plants. These are 1950s. You might as well just be burning tires in your dadgum backyard, and that pollutants go up, and it comes around to us. But I believe God put the stuff in the ground for us to use, and we need to use it in a fiscally and environmentally sound as well as we can, because it's a lot better than it used to be. I grew up in Knoxville, and I know this is going all out, but a company called Robert Shaw used to be on the side of the interstate down there, and I can remember we were members of Church Street United Methodist, and Mom and Daddy and my brother and sister out in the back of that old VW Bug probably weren't wearing seat belts. My dad was smoking a pipe, and but we all survived.
I was gonna say, did you die?
No,
You're
I drank
good.
out of water hoses too, and I rode a bicycle without, you know, and our skateboards and everything else. But I remember Robert Shaw, when they were making plexiglass, you would literally, you see the smoke come up, you'd roll your windows up, because it would be so putrid, your eyes would run and your nose would run that bad. And it's not like that anymore. They do that now, they put your butt in jail, and they should, frankly. You know, grew up in West Hills. I don't live there now, but I drove over one of the hills, and I remember looking over and seeing the mountains, the Smokies. When I was a kid, you couldn't see that very often, not very often at all. And so things have changed. We've changed the environmental rules, which we should, but a lot of the things when they try to put us out of business is China lobbying with the environmental movement, because a lot of those folks are being used by the Marxist and the communist left, and it puts us out of business. And then you combine that with any other worldwide fluctuations, but Trump realizes that, and that's when he's talking to world leaders, that's what he knows it, and they know he knows it, and that's a dangerous. Poor Joe Biden, I mean, he couldn't find the soft serve ice cream machine in the White House.
Poor
That
guy.
Yeah. Last time I had a conversation with him, we were talking about Corvettes, and it was the most surreal conversation I think I've ever had. I've never done acid, but I'm thinking it might have been close to that.
Sounds like a good
experience.
time.
Yeah,
Good grief.
yeah. And if you think though, that he's got his finger on the trigger allegedly of the nuclear arsenal, that's a scary thought.
Very scary. So, Bigfoot, real or no?
Well, the Bible says, professing yourself to be wise, they became fools. And I don't know that I believe in Bigfoot. I think there was something there at one time. There's a giant ape called Gigantopithecus, and they found bones of it in caves in China and things like that. That would sort of fit it, but it's in our lore. And if you look at prior to Al Gore inventing the internet and everything, that was a joke, by the way. But every tribe, every continent in the world has that. The Australians, they had, it was called the Yowie. The Indians, Native American Indians down in Florida, it was, you know, the skunk ape, and then you got the Yeti up in the Himalayas, and you got the traditional Bigfoot Washington, and there's sightings. I've talked to people they're educated people that all they gain from that is shame. And and I always go back to this. I'm not I believe in science, but I believe God created it. And there is a fish called a coelacanth that was caught off the coast of Madagascar. You can look it up. It's
I've heard of this fish.
Yes, ma'am. And it had lobed fins, and it was supposed to have been extinct 50 million years ago. And then it appeared. And then all the evolution scientific crowd, they're like, you know, they went, you know, well, this is, no, it exists, you know, and it's just, how it exists, I don't know. Why is it still here? I don't know. But something, I think it'd be pretty cool to have that thing come out of the Chinese have I hate quoting them, is back before they were communists. They say the wisest animal in the woods is the animal that hasn't been discovered yet.
Ah, exactly. And you know, who knows how many of the cryptid are hanging out in the Marianas Trench? I don't want to know.
Well, we can talk about that.
They could stay down there.
I know some folks have been down in there also on another issue, but topic that's pretty hot right now. But anyway, you go ahead. I was on Tucker Carlson. That's all I want to talk about. But anyway, you go ahead.
Sure. Well, you're known to be one of the most straight talkers in Congress. You like to tell people how this sausage is made. Are there any stories that really stuck out to you as far as the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill that happened? I know there was a lot of contentions during all of that. Is there anything that you like to share with us?
Leadership they don't particularly like me, but they can't kill me, and they know I can help. And it was very late. It was after 2:00, and we had a couple of people that had not voted, so I didn't vote. Because if you vote, you can't, there's no way to negotiate with anybody. So, well, you've already voted, Bert, what do you care? So I held out, and leadership asked me if I could talk to a couple folks, and I said, yeah, I'll talk to them. And so I figured out what they needed, and get past all the personalities and the hurt feelings, and just what do you need. And a lot of times it's something pretty simple. Sometimes people get snubbed, or they need something in the bill, because it was being written. I mean, there was a lot of things being formulated right up to the very end. And the speaker was in this little private little office thing off to the side, and he asked me, what do they need? And I told him, and he said, and so he called Trump, President Trump, excuse me, and said, you know, got Burchett here, he's working on this thing. I said, well, and we talked or whatever, and he said, it was said to me, that's very doable. I said, all right, well, y'all work it out and come tell me. I'll be back here on Center's Row. That's where I sit. Second to last, call it Center's Row. Everybody gets in trouble or whatever. They always sit with me because I don't really care. You know, I mean, in Congress, standing in judgment of anybody. I mean, let's face it. A lot of members of Congress are dirtbags. I mean, you know, we all are. I'm just a forgiven one. But so they come back out, and the message carrier says, hey, the president's on the phone, wants to talk to you. And the folks sitting next to me, they looked at him and said, Burchett? And they said, no, you all. And I said, and so we walked, and of course I already knew, and so we're walking back, and I said to one of them said to me, what should I ask for, Burchett? I said, just tell him what you told me. I said, just tell him exactly what you want. And I said, he said, really? I said, yeah, let's do that. And they did. And then the bill, and this was on the bill that allowed the bill to be brought up. It's bureaucracy, I don't know, it's stupid. Y'all just vote yes or no. Whoever wins, wins, but it's Washington, so you gotta give a lawyer a job. And then as I was walking out, and I hadn't voted yet, and and my phone rang. And it's 2:53 in the morning, I'll never forget this. I looked down, and I was like, what in the world? And then I said, hello, and he said, Tim. I said, yeah. He says, it's Charlie. And I have a brother named Charlie. My dad's name is Charlie too, but Dad's in heaven with Mama. But he says, I said, Charlie who? He said, Charlie Kirk. And I go, oh, dadgum, sorry, Charlie. I said, yeah, it's late. He said, you haven't, well, what? I thought you were, Thursday, he says, I thought you were MAGA. And I said, dude, I am. I said, what are you talking about? He says, I'm watching, and I said, haven't you talked to the president? He said, no, I haven't talked to the president. I said, or the speaker, or anybody. He said, I'm just watching you on C-SPAN right now. And I said, okay. And I said, let me tell you about the plan, Charlie, because Charlie always had a plan. And he did have a plan, and he had a great plan. He's in heaven because of that plan. But he, you know, and that was and then we walked back, and everybody lit up the board, and we won. Wow. And that's how, I mean, that's not all how there's a lot of other mechanisms going, but I mean, I was dealing with drunk congressmen yelling at these people, and I was trying to, you know, I had to get leadership to pull them off of them, because I was very close to the cusp of getting what we needed, and so I've been in several situations like that. I don't know, it's kind of like a Forrest Gump. I just back into them, and I mean, even with Speaker Johnson, when he was elected, we had 2 or 3 that held out, and I talked to them, and I told him what they needed, and there's a picture in the Wall Street Journal, front page of the Wall Street Journal that next day, and I'm leaned over, and I'm talking to the speaker, and they were up in the gallery, I guess, and took the picture. I didn't see him take any damn picture, but that's where the deal was cut. Mm-hmm. That's how he became speaker, and that's how the big beautiful bill ended up passing.
Wow.
But, you know,
Charlie was calling to give you the what for, huh?
Yeah, but then I explained to him, and he got it, because he understood the program.
His intentions were very pure.
They were very pure. Absolutely. But you know, he was just, you know, he was upset. It was late at night. He'd had a lot of work put in on this thing, and I understood that, and I explained it to him. So.
Definitely a fighter. Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, so.
Sorry you didn't ask for all that.
No, that's okay. Like I said, I asked a similar question, so I wanted a roundabout answer. That worked. So, you and President Trump have promised to deliver more funding for border security.
Yeah.
So the $75 billion in new funding. How do you feel that and the immigrations and customs enforcement are going to improve the safety not just of Tennessee, but nationwide.
Well, Tom Homan is my spirit animal. Outside of the foul language, he kind of reminds me of my daddy. He was a World War II Marine. He was a straight talker, and Tom Homan is a straight talker, and I like him. We had, we were at a little private meeting with him, and he was very kind to me, and he laughed at my jokes, and we talked, and even did a selfie. I think he even smiled, which is kind of unusual. But I think those folks have done a great job. They've done a great job. I think it's money well spent when you think of the fentanyl that comes in. We've lost more people with fentanyl poison than we have to the Vietnam War, for goodness sakes. The Democrats just hid it. The national media hid it because they had so much invested in Joe Biden that he was going to deliver, and he didn't. And they crumbled because of it. And the criminal element, the thing I lay awake at night is these kids, 300,000 kids. I sponsored some of the toughest legislation in the country going after child molesters, and because those kids get a life sentence under that stuff. And we passed some of the toughest laws in the country. And I passed the death penalty, but it was ruled unconstitutional. And we got a better court. They since passed it again. ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children. I think we found $5 million, which the state of Tennessee is a heck of a lot of money, with those offices in three grand divisions. And what they do is they get on the internet and pose as children. Meet me in a motel room, and then they go arrest them. They ought to go beat the crap out of them and execute them. But eventually,
Heinous stuff.
I would agree. And it's unbelievable the amount of people that are affected by that. Every time I go, when I was pushing that when I was in the state legislature, I would speak at groups. And without a doubt, somebody you just wouldn't have expected. Somebody that was, very well put together or something, and they would confide in me, or somebody would call me. I was in a radio show one time, and I remember the producer asked to see me after the show, and the producer had been abused by an uncle, I believe, and I remembered I was a reporter that I didn't ever really agree with, very liberal, and the reporter, I always remember this, they were using a number 2 pencil, and they put the pencil down, and which to me was a manifestation of their thoughts, saying, I'm not the reporter anymore, I'm just a person talking to you. And the reporter said that, in fact, they had been abused as a child.
Oh, wow.
And then the reporter picked the pencil back up, and that was the signal to me to say they're back being a reporter again.
Got back into character.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
And so, I lay awake at night, and those 300,000 children that came over the border that we don't know where they are. Sure, some of them probably went into good homes, but you've got the sweatshop element, and of course the sexual abuse, which I just can't fathom that. And that is something it's inexcusable. It's inexcusable.
Agreed. We need to protect the innocent.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
And the Bible talks about how you treat the least amongst you. Surely our children are the least amongst us, so we need to be protected.
100%.
I have a daughter now. Of course, she's not a child, she's an adult, but
Oh, she's still your baby.
yeah, well, I got her when I married her mama, who's a wonderful woman, and my wife was a widow, and I got a twofer on that deal. I got the family, and adopted her, and she's wonderful. She's like her mama. She's very independent and tough.
Hey, you gotta be in this world. Come
I
on
dig
now.
that. No, I dig it. They're Burchetts. They gotta be.
I like that. That's fantastic.
Yes,
Well, going back to the Tucker Carlson interview, I caught that.
Yeah.
That was pretty intense.
Yeah, Tucker's a good guy. He's always been very nice to me.
Absolutely. What would you want to tell us that you didn't tell him? What's actually going on with those underwater UFOs?
Well, that's a lot. This is a high-ranking member of the Navy tells me this stuff, and there's actually a movie coming out, and I was in it actually, believe it or not. I flew down to Texas, of all places. I don't ever go anywhere. I'm not a homebody, and I'm not
I mean, it's a good state. Why would you leave it? You know,
yeah,
come
I know, I
on.
dig it, but I get down there, there's a lot of liberals, and there's a film fest, this South by Southwest. It's a major type deal, and I have a pretty prominent role in this documentary, but they interviewed, CIA folks And I mean, these are high ups talking about it. But anyway, you know, it didn't. The UFO thing is something I've always been interested in, Bigfoot, all that stuff. My parents were unusual. People that grew up in West Knoxville know where the West Hills Library is. And, you know, our parents were pretty cool. My parents were, you know, they let me go to the library and just turn me loose, come back, go get pick up in a couple hours, whatever, you know. And that was cool. And so we would have these books set up on all that stuff, and UFOs were in there. And I started reading about it, and I really got fascinated with the issue. And I was being interviewed. I was walking down the street, and I always like to joke about the center of all media, TMZ. I don't know if you've seen that show. Turns out I'm big buddies with the guy on there. The guys that do it, they're big fans of mine on this UFO thing. So they asked me, they said, "What do you think about the report that's coming out?" And I said, "Well, I said, you know, it's going to look like it was shot with a 12 gauge. It's going to have so many holes in it. It's just going to be all whited out." And I said these magical words, and I sell this T-shirt on my website that says this. It says, "More people believe in UFOs than believe in Congress," and so, you know, and it sells pretty good, as a matter of fact. But you know, he told me about a craft that they chased with sonar. It was big as a football field, and it was doing over 200 miles an hour. And the fastest thing we got is probably in the mid-30s, I think, maybe upper 30s that y'all don't know about. But I don't officially know about it, so I can talk about it. But and so that's about as, you know, you can shoot a bullet in a pool that's 30 feet long, and I mean, you know, it literally will fall to the ground, or you can catch it by the end. You mean an AK-47, you know, it just doesn't go that far. It just stops. There's all that friction from the water, and it's just you can't fathom this stuff. And I'm, you know, talked to some of the best pilots we have in the world, the equivalency to Top Gun type pilots, and they're this guy. I'm walking, and I get a lot of this stuff they don't tell me in official meetings. They'll walk out, and we'll be walking along, and they'll say, "Hey, Tim, I need to tell our congressman, I need to tell you this." Wow. And this guy said this thing was 14 feet from my canopy, and said it wasn't ours. And the last thing this Navy guy told me, he was telling me, he walked out, I remember he walked out my side door, which was, I found kind of odd, but now I figured it out. He said, "We're not alone." And he said, "And they're real." And I said, "All right." And I can't tell you I can't tell you everything I know, but everything I've seen, not out in the sky, but in some of these meetings and briefings and things that I go to, but it's something's going on. And I think just as taxpayers, it doesn't matter if you think it's crazy or not, we ought to know what we're spending tens of millions of dollars on.
Absolutely.
And, you know, when I sit in a confidential briefing and some little punk in a man bun starts talking down to me, outside I want to just pinch his little neck off. I would, and while I'm sitting there, these military brass are sitting there, and I read people. God gives everybody gifts, and I guess my only gift I really have is that I can interpret people. And when somebody walks in my room or office, I know they're a dirtbag or they're legit. And that kid was a little punk, but the brass that was there, you could tell how uncomfortable they were. And so something's going on in the vastness of God's great universe. I walk out every night to feed take my dogs to go to the bath. They always go at 4 o'clock in the morning. I never understood that. Why don't you go like at 9 or 10 before we go to bed or something? But no,
that's
4
too
o'clock
convenient.
in the morning. Yeah. I look up at those stars, and literally the light from those stars left there before the time of Christ. I mean, the vastness of God's great universe. There's biblical history of it. Ezekiel saw the wheel. Genesis 1, God created the heavens and the earth. And I mean, we are one grain in a billion, in a billion beaches, one grain of sand. And so, and honestly, do you think we're the best God can do? I mean, you know.
I mean, you know, we're pretty cool, but.
No, not that cool. No, you need to come to Washington.
I've been there.
Yeah, all right, good. But no, there's a lot going on with that, and my friend Representative Luna, she's great. And you know, it's funny, they gave us this hearing, the first hearing, and they, you know, patted me on, "Oh, we'll let Birchie do this thing. You know, nobody's going to show up." It was the most attended hearing that they'd seen, I think, in 15 years that anybody had a record of. They had to open up another room. I went out at 4 o'clock in the morning to do a interview on Fox, to get on the early show, and people were already lined up outside.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's real interest. Over half the country believes something else is going on. Look, it doesn't matter if you believe it or not. Little green man flying saucers, doesn't matter. I just want to know what we're spending tens of millions of dollars on.
I concur, absolutely.
It's our dadgum money, and let's find out. And I don't trust the government that doesn't trust its people, and they don't trust us. And there's a lot of arrogance and power, and I mean, I can go into all the other stuff and bore you with it, but, and again, you didn't ask for all that.
I mean, I kind of did. So.
Yeah, you did.
Well, what is the name of the documentary again, and when does that air?
I tweeted about it yesterday. It's I think it's something like Total Disclosure, but I can't remember. They've changed it a couple times, but I think they've settled on one. But go on my Twitter account, X @Tim Burchett, and I tweeted about it yesterday, I think, and there's like a preview of it and shows all the people on it. Some of the CIA guys that talk about. I mean, they go pretty deep. They start talking about aircraft and beings that they have I'll just say dealt with. Yeah, I mean, I'd heard it all. I'd been there, but I like watching people and their reactions. You could just hear them. I mean, these are old guys. They got nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose except, tarnish their reputations. And they took it. So, anyway.
Well, let's go back to the.
You think about it's in a movie, I know the name of it, but I just really don't care.
That's okay. We'll follow you on X and just, look for the
right.
updates on
Thank
there.
you.
So it's incumbent upon you to put that on there. So let's talk about the working families tax cut. How is that going to affect your everyday regular Tennessean?
Yeah, $1,700 a year, and it's moving in the right direction. I think all the other peripheral things too, with the freeing up America's, removing the bureaucracy and just allowing Americans to work. I think that we can, and I always think about people being able to get jobs here. You don't have to travel somewhere because the economy is gonna boom, and it is booming. And we've had a few hiccups back and forth, and jobs reports are changing from time to time, and they tend to be fairly inaccurate, as we've found that they've skewered them against us. They didn't report them accurately under the Biden administration to make him look better than he was, and so I don't really trust it. I could just drive up and down Kingston Pike and see a sign that says "Help Wanted." I was in the bank the other day, and the lady said, "You know, anybody who'd like to be a teller, we're hiring. We need a teller bad." And my wife's oldest son is an electrician, and he's going to have a job anywhere. If he stays out of trouble, he'll have a job.
Absolutely.
And we need electricians. I always say you can't take a clogged toilet to Mexico. You got to have somebody here today.
That
to
is
fix
true.
it.
That is very true. Well, you were instrumental in passing the working families tax cut. What is next for you politically?
Well, I would honestly like a shot at, what would I like to do in politics? I would like to be a United States Senator. I would like that opportunity. I like the fight. And I think the Senate would be, somebody like me would be a little interesting over there.
I think it'd be very interesting.
We've been doing pretty well with the social media now, and in the coverage we've been getting, we make a lot of people nervous, and I like that. We pass bills all the times in the House, and they go to the Senate, and they just die. I think if I was a senator, what would I do different than maybe some of the others? I would develop a conduit with members of the House, since I would come from the House, and to attack those issues. I have a bill now to defund the Taliban. We send them $40 million a week.
Ugh.
And it goes to the NGOs. I can go through all that. We don't have all the time. You don't want to hear all that. But I passed it in the House. It passed it in the House. But it's just languishing in the Senate. And nobody seems to know. Nobody seems to be able to pick it up or do anything with it. And we have some great sponsors on it, but it just sort of sits over there. And they're, well, we need to go through the committee system. We need to have hearings. We need to do all this. That's a bunch of bull. You need to. Politics is a dadgum contact sport, Danica. We got too many of these guys want to, they get in there and they want to pontificate and write editorials, and nobody's reading that garbage. you need to take it to them
Get the job done.
and embarrass them if you got to. And I would very well do that, because I do not care. I'm sick of it. I really am afraid we're going to lose our country unless we address some of this outlandish spending and the programs that are going on, that we, behind the scenes, and we keep uncovering under the Doge stuff. And, you know, Elon Musk did a great thing for this country, but the problem is we don't have the guts to pass the bills to make it permanent. When I did, when President Trump did the executive orders, you know, he wrote it, you know, I always say they're written in pencil, because the next president can just come and erase them, and that's all it takes. It's just the president doing it. And I put 24 of those in bill form to go to the committees, and yet they're not being heard. And that's a disgrace. That is a disgrace. Congress doesn't realize that the Republicans need to realize we're one flu season away from losing the majority. You lose two or three people on any given day. Some days we can't vote. We have to fluctuate because there's not somebody's out, or there's just whatever's going on. And so the reason that is because we didn't run on President Trump's agenda the things that you all at AFP are concerned about: the border, the economy, the big beautiful bill, things like that, and things that are contained within it, the tax relief for working families. And members of Congress didn't run on that stuff. They ran on a bunch of nonsense, feel-good stuff. And Trump realized that. That's why he won with overwhelming numbers. And Congress needs to address that.
Absolutely. Well, we have time for a few audience questions.
I love that.
Is that all right
I
with
love
you?
that.
Okay, wonderful.
First Amendment's a great thing till you see something I don't like.
Let's see here. First one. With the death of Charlie Kirk, it has caused a movement among the youth. What is your message to young Americans?
Stay strong. Stay in the fight. Americans, and I'm guilty of this, we want our dadgum pizzas in 30 minutes or less, and that's about our attention span. And we move on to the next shiny object. I can remember after 9/11, everybody had their flag out, and everybody was putting their hand over their heart. And remember when Biden was in office, I'd look around and people were kneeling during the national anthem, or wouldn't put their hand on their heart, or they were turning around, they were talking to their friends, or doing something stupid. And instead of paying honor to our flag and our fighting men and women. And so I would caution them to stay in the fight, to do not get frustrated, to keep at it, because the left would love to distract you. And part of that, if I can address part of that further, you know, I think where we've lost the fight is our colleges and universities. And Charlie got on that, he seized upon that, and he energized the base that sort of thought they were forgotten. But the problem is we get all excited because some professor says something awful, and then we get them canned, and then we think, oh, we've just solved the problem. It's like kudzu.
Yeah.
Cut it off, it's coming up 5 different places.
It's a deeper problem.
Yes, ma'am, it is a complete deeper problem. And the problem we have is these knuckleheads that are doing the hiring of these people and that are recruiting these people. That's the problem. And when you, it's public record in Tennessee. Go look at some of these colleges and universities and preachers and everybody else. Go look at their voting record. It is public record. And I think you'd be amazed, because universities tend to, and this way all over the country, they bring the legislators in, and the big boys have a state dinner for them. They take them to Skybox or take them to a concert or something at the university and show them all the cool stuff, and they think, wow, this is one of us. No, they're not. They are not one of you. You know, I guarantee you, somebody who has a degree in lesbian studies, whatever the heck you're going to do with that, they don't think like you and I do. And there's a lot of that on our college campuses, and we need to address that. And we've got a little bit of upper hand right now, but I think we better follow through. And it's up to these state legislators. Just cut their dadgum funding. Just cut their funding. Harvard has they're not a public university, but they have a multi-billion-dollar trust. You know, they could send all their kids there for free, and yet we still dump millions upon millions of dollars to do research at these schools, and funnel it into things that they don't need to. And I think we need to get out of that business.
Makes sense, makes sense. Let's see here. So we've got a question on ending the Ukraine war.
Yeah.
I guess, what are your thoughts on that?
I've never voted for a penny for Ukraine. It's not our war. Putin's a thug. He's a third world thug. Their GDP is somewhere between France and Canada's, and everybody says he's Hitler. He's not Hitler. Hitler was completely more awful than Putin. Putin's former KGB. He's got a huge ego. Trump's got his number, but we give him a little more time, because what we've got to do is shut their oil off. In the beginning of the Ukraine war, we were playing on both sides. We were honoring contracts with Russia, gas contracts, and we were selling to Ukraine. So, I always talk about the war pimps in Washington at the Pentagon. They're just pimps, and their business is war, and it's very good business. It's great for their portfolios. Case in point, when Biden gave Ukraine our missile defense system, we had to replenish our missile defense system overnight as a multi-billion-dollar no-bid contract. And who owns stock in those companies? Members of Congress on both sides of the aisle. And some of them had bought that stock within 2 weeks of that decision being made.
How convenient.
Very convenient. So you got a bunch of war pimps in Washington who couldn't find Ukraine on a globe. And they're gonna send my daughter off to a war someday. It's not our war. Not our war, Danica. And they all puffed up about it. Well, and I did this. I asked our conference, I said, I want to see how many of y'all are going to be puffed up when China rolls across those straits and goes into Taiwan. What are you going to do then? And those K Street lobbyists will be right down there. Oh, you can't do that because this clothing we got, these cars, these parts, we got to have it. And that's one thing Trump gets, and that's why he's making America great again, because it's going to get it right here. We've got it here. We've got the rare earth minerals. We don't need to go to China. We're waiting 22 years in Minnesota to get a permit. I think it may be 30 years now, I'm not sure, of a permit to mine rare earth minerals there. And they just keep delay. And we got some real problems there. And they just keep pushing us more and more towards a world war. We don't need to be. We need to pull back. It's Europe's war. We put so much money into that, I forget the name of the country that was number 2 behind us for the longest time. $200 billion. And they told Trump he couldn't build the wall his first term. He needed, I think, $4 billion. They said, no, it'd break us.
Man. Well, that kind of leads into my next question.
Sorry, I'm kind of passionate about that.
No, don't apologize for that at all. As of 2025, China owns 265,000 acres of U.S. farmland spread, it's near U.S. bases, spread between Texas, North Carolina, Missouri, Utah, and Virginia. Is there a plan in Congress to ramify this, or how is that?
They own a lot of property in Loudon, Tennessee. Really? Yeah. The problem you've got is that, I'm not an attorney, but what they've done is it's not individual owners. There's a lot of it's corporate, and so you've got to pierce the veil of the corporation to know the stockholders and who owns the stock and how that works. Chinese are pretty crafty, but we need to stop it. We need to stop it. There's clearly they want to control commodity, which is food, and they want to be near a military installation. They're our enemy. We better realize that. And they are not. I think they're like a smart heroin dealer. I don't think they want to kill us. They just want to be able to feed us that needle as much as possible without killing us. And they knew numbers. I remember I had breakfast with Mike Pompeo a long time ago, and he said, Tim, they know how many paper clips you use in the Longworth office building, which kind of disturbed me. I was like, how's Pompeo know I'm in the dadgum Longworth office building? I guess CIA, I guess you know those kind of things. But they count numbers. It's just like the Chinese balloon. That balloon was 1960s maybe technology. It was a joke. What they were doing was measuring our response, our military response, which was non-existent, our political response, which was gutless, in our media, who just kind of poo-pooed it. And they ended up dropping it off the coast of Myrtle Beach, and they could have had it in the Aleutian Islands. The balloon came through, and it flew over areas like Oak Ridge National Laboratory. It turned around and went back. And I mean, it went over some of the, and it was discussed, some of the missile sites that you all know about. And dadgummit, some of the missile sites I know about.
Oh.
So, yeah, and they didn't do a dadgum thing. They should have dropped that thing at first glance. And that would have sent the message. And they're not even gonna try that under Trump. Because if they do, he'll hold a press conference on the carcass of that dadgum thing when it hits the ground. And I think that's what that was more about. It wasn't about getting our secrets, because they've got people in our national labs, they got people in our universities, they got people on our military bases. They popped a couple of Chinese not long ago that were in the Navy that were taking their secrets and selling it back, and they were officers in our Navy, and man, that's just embarrassing when they pull that stuff off. But we've allowed it. We're on stupidity and greed, and it needs to stop. But yeah, I think we can do something legislatively to stop that, but we clearly need to do it right, because it's whack-a-mole with those cats. You hit them once and they pop. It's the kudzu thing. It just pops up somewhere else.
I'm gonna start saying that. That's really good. I like that.
I explained I was on something, CNN or something, maybe Fox, and the guy was a Yankee and he didn't understand what that kudzu was. So.
You learn. You come down here and
Yeah.
it's everywhere.
Keep the windows closed at night. It'll crawl in and snatch your kids.
Well, here's a fun question.
All right.
This is from Beverly. Daylight savings time is going to end again on 11/8. Any chance this switch will end this time?
Well, is it Beverly?
Yes.
Beverly, dadgummit, I went to Pelosi with that early on when she was, and during her reign of terror, and she said, well, such and such, I've talked to him about it, and I think we're gonna do something with it. I thought, that's great, and they did, and somebody got in their ear. Yeah, it's ridiculous. We lose money, it causes depression, it's just ridiculous, and I hate it. We just keep it one way and leave it.
It messes up my dog's eating schedule. Come on now.
Next up, this dog's eating schedule.
So we have time for one last question. Let's see here. This is from Leanne. Knowing many of your constituents are concerned about inflation, healthcare access, and education, which of your introduced bills, like the legislation line item Veto Act or the Defense Against Drones Act, do you believe will most directly benefit East Tennessee, and what timeline do you expect for their progress?
Well, the Defense Against Drone Act would affect everybody, because imagine you've got a daughter and a wife and you've got a swimming pool and they're in the backyard swimming and some dirt bag and a drone flies over and you can't do anything about it. I just said, if you got a 12 gauge, you ought to be able to knock it down. Of course, the people, Democrats, were all wringing their hands saying, oh, the bullets will go miles. And it's a shotgun, it doesn't go miles. Anyway, I've been sprayed in pellets out hunting dove and stuff in the field. The bills I get, I deal with, or when somebody calls me and has a problem. And I said, for instance, that one, there was stuff was going on. I said, we ought to be able to knock them down. Remember Fox asked me about them. I said, I heard they taste a whole lot like chicken. Dadgummit, that's all they just want to talk about that, joked around about the whole thing. I never got to the seriousness of the bill, but it died in committee. We didn't have enough guts. Not even enough Republicans would vote for it because we had a majority. And it's a personal property issue, and maybe I just didn't compel them enough. But until one of them gets spied upon, and I live on a little 60-acre farm, and one of those things flies over my property, I'm knocking it down because they're invading my property.
That's trespassing.
Yeah, it is. I think it is. I think you go to the courts, it would do that. The FAA allegedly controls.
I thought it was a bird. Oh no.
Lit up at night, not hardly. What was the other question? What was the other part of that? I'm sorry.
No, that
Beverly,
so let's
was
see
it?
here. So that she was asking the VETO Act of the Defense Against Drones Act, she asked which one do you believe will most directly benefit East Tennessee?
I think any of them do. The thing you got to realize too in Congress is that the most important thing I do, Beverly, is pick up the daggum phone and I fight the bureaucrats because we created a nightmare for y'all, and it's a disaster. It is a complete disaster from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. There's some bureaucrat that's snatching away your personal liberties, and that disgusts me. That's what we do. We have the best constituent service in the country. I believe we handle for a lot of other offices, and the men and women in my office, our office, do great work, and that phone's always ringing, which is kind of funny. I go in other people's office and they're just sitting around, and my people got their head down on the computer and are listening. They're getting a phone call and trying to figure something out with the bureaucracy. So that's the most important thing we do.
Well, we thank you for all your hard work, absolutely. And we thank you for spending your evening with us. I know you'd probably rather be making some custom awesome skateboards or hanging out with your dog, Roscoe.
Actually, Roscoe's gone. He passed away a couple of weeks ago.
no.
My best buddy.
I'm sorry to
Wish you
hear
hadn't
that.
brought that up.
Aw, I didn't know, man. I'm sorry.
See, if you're on X, you would know that.
I am. I'm sorry. I'm busy.
I'm just kidding. Danica, it's cool.
Well, my condolences. But again, thank you so much for being here. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Danica. It's been a pleasure, and thank y'all for the great work you do. You're America's conscience.
Well, thank
And
you.
I dig that. I always love hearing from y'all and your people, and you're very well informed, and the membership is great. I count some of the people in this room as some of the best friends I have, and some of the worst enemies, but we won't go into that. Thank you. I started that, by the way. Fist bump.
Love it. Love it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We do appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. And for the questions we did not get to, the congressman is very accessible. You can direct those to his office, and I'm sure he'll give you a reply.
And we're working this week, so call away.
Between the lines.